woke up this morning, thought John Harbaugh was going to get on a plane down to Nashville to have his interview with the Tennessee Titans, but instead he cancels that good old plane trip and says, you know what? I'm going to be the head coach of the New York Giants. John Harbaugh signs what is expected to be a 5-year, $100 million deal to be the next head coach of the New York Giants, a very polarizing town when it comes to media. It's one of those towns where it comes, you live or die by the media for sure. I think John Harbaugh will be fine in that regard. But either way, an exciting time if you're a Giants fan, something that you've been obviously looking for some sort of help. And now you're bringing in John Harbaugh, who looks like he's going to bring in Todd Monken as his offensive coordinator. A guy that has been with Lamar Jackson for the last couple of years is now going to be in charge of building up Jaxson Dart. What do you think about that?
I think if you're a Giants fan, you have to be just thrilled. Like, this feels like a real chance to pull the Giants out of the gutter. And it's been a long time since the Giants have been relevant. I'm definitely keeping my words in check here, considering that I'm a Patriots fan, but you can't deny that over the last, 5-10 years, the Giants have been, it's not as bad as the Jets, but it certainly has not been good.
Nothing's as bad as the Jets. Let's remember that.
Exactly. And we'll get into that later today too. But this does feel like the beacon of hope that the Giants have needed. Not saying that Daboll, honestly, I think that Daboll could have been the guy. I legitimately do. It just kind of had some bad circumstances, this, that, and the other. You got to move on. It is what it is. But now with Harbaugh, this feels like if you can't get it right with Harbaugh, we need to revisit a lot of, maybe some bigger picture stuff. This is super exciting. I feel like you mentioned Lamar. What can he do with Jaxson Dart? A guy who absolutely can use his legs, but more probably I would say of a passer. If I had to, just kind of generally make a statement on that, you got Scadaboo. The pieces are starting to come together for the Giants. Then you look ahead to this draft, and they have a real opportunity to make this team a lot better. I don't know, man. I'm not going to say they're going to win the NFC East next year, but they do have, I think, a significantly better chance now than they did a week ago.
2011 is when the Giants won the Super Bowl with Tom Coughlin, with Eli Manning. That's the last time they won the Super Bowl. Since then, they've only made the playoffs twice. Since then, they've only had 3 winning seasons. John Harbaugh comes in as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens for the last, 18, 19 years. He had a winning season in every year but one of them. So you're bringing in a winning mentality, whether you like it or not, which, of course, I think you obviously like it. But I think that is the main takeaway here. The Dallas Cowboys haven't been anything for quite a long time. Are they building the right direction? Who knows? Because there's always the possibility that maybe they are, maybe they're not. The Commanders had a great year last year, but then Daniels got hurt this year, and they're making some changes to their offensive and defensive staffs. So it makes you wonder where their directions are going to go. And the Eagles just lost in the wild card, and they're looking for an offensive coordinator again for Jalen Hurts. Do they continue to be? Their defense is solid, but there are so many questions about that offense. John Harbaugh has the chance, the opportunity. Oh, and by the way, they have a young core already with Jaxson Dart, Cam Scadaboo. They have that young core already. That the pass rush that they have with Abdul Carter and Thibodeau and all that stuff is electric. You bring in a guy, a proven coach like John Harbaugh, and I don't think it's out to left field to say that if you make this offseason right, if you make this one offseason right, which I would expect that Joe Shane, the GM, is still on the hot seat, even though he brings in John Harbaugh. This will probably be his last hire if it doesn't go right. Even if it does go right, it's probably his last hire. Harbaugh's probably not going anywhere for 10 years if that's the case, at least 5 on the $100 million deal. But if you get this offseason right, I don't think it's out to left field to say that New York can be at least a wild card team in the NFC next year, right away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right now they're obviously picking 5 projected, Jordan Tyson, potentially new tackle. If they go to the defensive side of the ball, there are some really solid names at that 5 spot. Obviously could move around in there, plus or minus a few picks, just depending on what they want. But I think this Giants team can get a lot better in the draft. And like you said, they already have a lot of the pieces. Remember, they might not have been winning quite as much as I think a lot of people thought they were because of how fun this team was, but this team was clicking early on in the season before the Scadaboo injury, before it felt like everything fell apart. If nothing else, you know me, I'm a vibes guy. The vibes in New York this last season early on were phenomenal, which was weird I mean, it was. And in some places it makes sense. Like that's like, oh yeah, of course the vibes were phenomenal. It's the early on in the season. It felt like for the last few years, it didn't matter. For the Giants, your vibes were just going to suck constantly. You're the Giants. Like, I don't know what to tell you. But early on this year, it felt like they had that fixed. The relationship between Scadaboo and Jaxson Dart was awesome. Two rookies that were just loving life, living the best life playing ball. And I think it all starts with vibes in some respects. And there was a hope for the rest of the season. Then, of course, things don't go the way that they wanted them to, but it was a step in the right direction. Now with Harbaugh and a potential, relatively high pick, I would say at 5 right now, that's a pretty solid pick. They can for sure be a wild card team next season. I would almost say they can make a push for that NFC East, just because you don't ever really know what the division's going to look like. And I think as far as up versus down trends, I would say New York is in the up trending department and one of few in that division.
Yeah, you have to see obviously the health and longevity of Malik Nabers right now, obviously coming off a bad injury, so much that he's making
Right.
IHOP commercials about sitting in your fantasy losers, and he's getting trolled by the waitress at IHOP in the commercial. Hilarious commercial, by the way. But on the flip side, I'm trying to think of back of all the Harbaugh years. Has there ever been a time where he's had a bad tight end? And if that's not the case, I can't think of that. Giants obviously could use a little bit of work there. Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon would be a great pickup in the NFL draft for Harbaugh. You might even be able to trade down a little bit to get him. I think he's a top 10 pick, but I don't think you have to pick him at 5 if you like where Malik Nabers sits, or if you go in free agency to get tight end. But I think that's something, especially over the last couple of years with Likely and Mark Andrews being there in Baltimore. He really likes those tight ends. Jaxson Dart, trying to make him become an NFL longevity quarterback itself, having a good tight end obviously helps that trajectory go. I think that could be a direction they go in year one, trying to build that core even more, is getting a solid tight end in the mix. Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon would be a huge addition for that one. Just putting out early vibes on the NFL draft, since, of course, John Harbaugh's been the Giants coach for a very long time now, for about 20 minutes. There was a text from an AFC executive, that was Jordan Schultz, put this out on social media, saying Vrabel to New England last year is what John Harbaugh to the Giants is this year in 2026. Mark it down as an A+ hire. Of course, you as a Patriots fan, and obviously what Vrabel has done, getting the Patriots back to being relevant again, and dare say waking the evil empire up in New England yet again. Well, Harbaugh doesn't have to worry about New England, at least until the Super Bowl. He's on the NFC side now. He doesn't have to worry about his brother with the Chargers now. He's got to worry about players like McVay and the Rams. He's got to worry about Seattle, the number 1 seed right now. He's got to worry about San Francisco. He's got to worry about those. And then, of course, the Eagles being in his division. Is this an A+ hire for the Giants?
Hey, quick timeout. If you haven't already, hit subscribe down below. We're live literally every morning during the week talking about the biggest stories in sports. So you hitting subscribe is completely free and helps us out more than you know. It's a win-win all around. All right, back to the clip. I think for the Giants, this is a phenomenal hire. I was actually going to ask you, what do you think, from Harbaugh's perspective, which division or conference would you rather be in? Is the AFC tougher right now or the NFC? Because I think it's pretty clearly the AFC is a tougher conference. I mean, you got Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar, obviously the Ravens, and he's leaving the Ravens, but he has been in that world for how long now? And it's really picked up over the last few years, especially, when the Patriots fell off. There were people, the Chiefs especially, right there to take their spot. And now it feels like like you said, like the empire has been woken up again, and the Patriots are completely back. So I would say for Harbaugh, this is a great move because, yes, you're going to have there's NFC teams out there that are very good, right? Like the Seahawks and the 49ers right now. Somehow the 49ers are constantly injured. I wonder if it's related to that whole EMF thing or whatever it was. It's very interesting to me. But they're a very good team, and the Seahawks are phenomenal, and the Rams are good. That's a whole conference. If you get that conference in your scheduling, yikes. And then there's also other good teams around the rest of the NFC, just in different divisions. But you're the only better division for Harbaugh to go to would have been the NFC South, because the rest of the NFC South is so terrible. This is probably the best division, maybe the best team that at least was available for him to join. You're in a weaker conference, in my opinion, in a relatively Keep in mind, I'm not taking a shot at Cowboys or, but like you got the Commanders and who have the Eagles been after the tush push kind of era. This is a relatively weaker division, and this is an area where Harbaugh can start to see some success right away, which isn't necessarily mandatory, but he wants to see success. I think this is a great play.
You know what this also does for the first time in 13 years? This brings in the ability to get the Harbaugh Bowl again. 2013 49ers versus Ravens in the Super Bowl. Now you can get Chargers Giants in the Super Bowl. You can get that now. So that we can get the Harbaugh Bowl back. That's possible.
That was the first Super Bowl I ever watched in my life.
So you're the reason the lights turned off.
I remember that like it was yesterday. I was like, wait, is this normal? That was like one of the first football games I ever watched. And I was like, this can't be right.
Look at you dating yourself. Only a 13-year pro here, getting this Marv and Rauh in the morning. Insane. 2013, that was the game the Niners won 34-31 in the Harbaugh Bowl. Giants can be back. I think, honestly, to be completely honest with you, if I had to put odds right now on who makes it to the Super Bowl first, are you saying the Giants or are you saying the Chargers?
I think I'm going to go with the Giants. Low key.
I feel, as crazy as that sounds, I feel like I also would take the Giants.
It's insane. The trajectory right now of the Giants is up and to the right. The Chargers feel like they need to change something. They're very flat. I cannot believe I just said that, but I do think that I'm going to lean Giants there.
That's insane to think about, but I'm completely on your side. I think it doesn't hurt that they're in the NFC compared to the AFC as well. I do think that NFC is the, dare I say, weaker conference at the moment. I think this is a home run hire by the Giants. I think this is something they had to do. To do. This is something they've been hurting for quite some time. You look at all the past coaches since Tom Coughlin. And Tom Coughlin obviously wasn't the best coach, but he won you 2 Super Bowls. So obviously Hall of Fame coach for sure. But after Coughlin, you had what? McAdoo, then Spagnuolo for a little bit, then Shermer, then Judge, then Dable. I mean, none of those moved the needle. As I mentioned, since winning the Super Bowl in 2011, you had 2 playoff appearances. You lost in the wild card in 2016. You lost in the divisional round in 2022. That's it. That's all you got. And you had 3 winning seasons since your Super Bowl win in 2011. The next year you went 9-7 in 2012. You didn't make the playoffs, but you had a winning season. You can take that to the bank. And then your 2 playoff appearances had winning seasons. 2016, you were 11-5. And then in 2022, you were 9-7-1. Last year, you were 4-13. The year before, you were 3-14. Since moving to the 17-game schedule, you've only had 1 winning season. That was 2022, and you lost in the divisional round in Brian Dable's first year with Daniel Jones as the quarterback. Now you got Jaxson Dart. Now you got John Harbaugh. Now you have a great core around him. I think this is a huge offseason for the Giants. There are going to be plenty of free agents that would love to get into the New York media, that would love to go and play for a New York team. Right now, they've just been so dang awful. But when you see the potential of what John Harbaugh can do, I would not be shocked if people are running to say, I want to go play for the Giants in 2026. This is a home run hire for the Giants.
This completely flipped the script on how people look at the Giants for sure. Yep. Everything 100%. We've said today has felt very, very odd. So excited to see what the next 5 years looks like for the Giants. And I assume that they will find a way to screw it up. But as of right now, I mean, the future does look bright for them.
Do you think this is the best day in Giants history since winning the Super Bowl in 2012? Knowing that you just hired 2011, excuse me, knowing you just hired probably the best coach since Tom Coughlin for the Giants.
Yeah, I think beating the Vikings in the playoffs was a great day for them too, but I would say this is definitely up there. Not a lot of bright days for them.
A lot of potential moving ahead for sure.
Hey, just wanted to thank you for watching the entire video. If you haven't already, consider hitting subscribe down below. It helps the channel grow and helps us bring better content to you guys every single day. We're live literally every Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 Eastern talking about the biggest stories in sports. So if you haven't dropped by, you really should. We love interacting with chatters, hearing your guys' opinions. You could easily become a part of the show. So hit subscribe and tell a friend. I'll see you in the morning.